Alright, let's begin. Hello everyone and welcome to BHD Studio. Today we'll be talking about this lens right here. This is the Tamron 17-70 f2.8 constant. It has image stabilization, OIS, as well as it has weather sealing, and it has a really nice quiet, it is a stepping motor, but it's nice and quiet. And so yeah, let's talk about this lens here, this Tamron zoom lens, and we'll compare it against Fujifilm's red label 16-55 f2.8, as well as my favorite studio YouTube product photography lens. Optically, it's not even competition to these two lenses, but it is my 16-80. But look how compact that lens is when it's in 16. Look at that. It is a nice compact kind of a travel all-in-one lens, and it's f4 constant, which I really love. So let's talk about these three lenses, and we'll start the video now. All right, so this Tamron lens here. So I did write a Fujilove article, so for those of you who want to see photos and sort of examples, side-by-side examples, go to fujilove.com. I'll put the link to the article down below. But this is a great lens. Thank you so much, Tamron, for sending this out to me. I've always been a fan of Tamron glass. They've been around since the 1950s. It's one of Japan's oldest third-party lens manufacturers. They made great lenses even in the 90s. They had like a 300mm f2.8. They were the first to come out with a 28 to 200mm all-in-one zoom. So Tamron's been around for a while, and they are an optics company. They make fantastic optical lenses. And this 17-70 f2.8 is, I think, 4.1 times. Let me just get to my notes here. It's a 4.1 times zoom, so it's the widest zoom, constant f2.8 zoom range in the APS-C ecosystem. And this was originally a Sony, for Sony E-mount, and so as you can see, there is no aperture ring. All you get is a zoom ring and a focus ring. And so for Fujifilm shooters, this is the opposite, right? We're used to seeing a zoom ring, a focus ring up in the front and a zoom in the back. So I often did find myself kind of grabbing, you gotta get used to this lens if you are a Fujifilm shooter, meaning there's no aperture ring, so you gotta use one of your front and rear dials for the aperture, and the rear is focus and the front is zoom. But I did compare against the 16-80 optically. Definitely, this has less distortion, it's better optically corrected. But in terms of sharpness and light fall off and especially things like sun stars stopping down, the Tamron is superior to this 16-80 and having an extra stop, right? So this lens, obviously at f2.8, it's actually very sharp, even in the corners of f2.8, but it sharpens up by f4. This lens here, not the sharpest along the edges at f4, and really, if you want optimum sharpness of this lens, you got to be at f8. And for some people, that's just too small of an aperture. For someone like me, for instance, for my product photography, I'm usually at f8 because when you are shooting at 35 or 50mm, I want everything in focus. And so I gotta shoot at f8. So for me, shooting this f8 is fine. And for video, I'm usually at f5.6. And it doesn't have to be as sharp as stills. And so this lens still works for someone like me, and it might work for someone like you. But, and this is also, has an aperture ring. It's more compact when it is zoomed back to 16 versus 17. This is kind of a beer can shape. In fact, it feels like it is definitely longer than the 16-55, but you also get a longer reach. So for street photography, I found I was able to get street photos. As you can see, I'll insert pictures, but it's so long in beer can. A lot of these lenses recently, the 18-120 is a beer can shape. This is definitely a beer can shape. Not a great lens for street photography, but for everything else, an all-in-one lens, f2.8, you're traveling, vacation, you are doing some street, urban photography, landscape, you're doing architectural, you pretty much have all the focal lengths in this one lens right here. And so, again, if you want more of a detailed comparison, go to my Fujilove article. But when I compared these two lenses, optically, there's some strengths and weaknesses between these two lenses, but optically, I still prefer... Wrong lens. Here we go. So the 16-55 f2.8, 17-70 f2.8, Optically, I still prefer Fujifilm 16-55. I like that it's slightly wider, not much wider, but just slightly wider. You get a little bit more pull with 70mm versus 55mm, but this lens is also a little bit more compact, even though the diameter is bigger, and it is a much heavier lens. I also liked having the aperture ring and everything where I'm used to it, right? The focus rings in the front, zoom rings in sort of in the middle, and sort of it's actually kind of a cool looking and really well built lens right here. So if I really needed an f2.8 lens as a professional, then I would probably still go with the 16-55 f2.8. But for everybody else, I think getting something like this, yes, it is more of a, generic design. It's lighter, it's more plasticky. And so in terms of build quality, the Fujifilm is better, even the 16-80. And there's no aperture ring on this, and also the zoom ring and the focus ring. And here's the zoom ring instead of the focus ring, and then here is the focus ring in the back. I really think these two should be flipped. And also I think that Tamron would be nice if you can customize this. So instead of it being a focus ring, how about it being an aperture ring instead? Imagine we could customize this and make this an aperture ring and just get rid of the focus ring and just let the camera autofocus, or be able to switch between the two. I think that would be pretty cool. But for the price that you're paying, so what is it, $7.99 US for the Tamron 17-70. So the 16-80 f4, Tamron 17-70 f2.8, they're both the same price. They both have OIS, although the 16-80 has better OIS, about 6 stops of OIS. This, I asked Tamron, they said they don't have numbers because it's based on the focal length and what camera you put it on. But I did put it on the X Pro 3, and I think it's about 3.5 stops of OIS. The 16-80 definitely has better OIS. But for video work, look for videos on the Sony version of this. A lot of YouTubers have done video tests on it. It looks great on video. Autofocus is nice and quiet as the 16-80. The same price between these two. So it depends on, do you want more range like the 16-80? You want better build quality, as well as having everything you want from a Fujifilm lens, everything that you're used to, aperture ring, and everything being where you want it to be? Or do you want the extra stop of speed, a lighter lens, but also longer, right? It's just a much longer lens. So for street photography, I would actually still take the 16-80 over the 17-70. But sometimes, if you're traveling with a lens like this on vacation, you want that lightweightness of this lens here. I don't think you can go wrong with this. And I think this really puts Fujifilm on the spot of like, this lens kind of lands in between the 16-80 and the 16-55 f2.8. Sort of in the middle, but the pricing wise is the same as the 16-80. So this makes the most economic choice. But if you're a hardcore Fujifilm fan wanting aperture ring, these two lenses are here, but there's something missing, right? Something like this, a prosumer level f2.8 lens. So I think Fujifilm, it'd be nice to see an update to the 16-55 f2.8, maybe having it 16-70 or 16-65 or 16-60 f2.8. Upgrade that linear motor. It was the slowest focusing of these three. So you're also moving way more glass than these three. And then optically, again, check my tests, but I kind of like the optics of this. Other than the sun stars, you get amazing sun stars on this zoom lens compared to both of these lenses. The 16-55 did not a bad job, but this is much better. Internal flare, better controlled in both of these Fujifilm lenses. And also, I think weather sealing, they say it is weather sealed, but it doesn't say dust proof or cold proof. These Fujifilm WR, it's great. It's dust proof, it's waterproof, it's cold proof, it's kind of heat proof. They give you the range. Tamron doesn't give you the range, so I don't really know. And so in terms of those things, build quality and those other specs like OIS and WR, the Fujifilm is better than this Tamron. But man, again, if you need that 2.8, you're getting with this lens. And so that's it. Thank you so much again, Tamron, for sending this lens. They do have an 11, what is it now? An 11 to 20 f2.8 in the Sony E mount. Not yet available in Fujifilm X mount. So again, this was E mount before, and now it's available on X mount. So I'm really looking forward to the 11 to 20 f2.8, and that again will really put pressure on Fujifilm to make high performance zoom lenses for the X shooters. And this is great for all of us that Tamron has decided to make this X mount. Even if you don't want to buy this lens, it basically pushes Fujifilm to work harder to make something like this for all of us at sort of the price point that Tamron is making this, is offering this lens for us. And so that's it. Thanks for watching and happy shooting.